We run the largest and longest, and I don't mean just in how long it takes. I mean, it's been going for 28 years.
Running 28 years.
I mean, some of these things happen fast, but I could see us not talking about HR tech specifically. An employee has a journey in an organization. It's not just about all the things they do in HR.
We're going to need to do true workforce planning, and that involves financial planning, and that involves all the technical aspects as well.
AI, a teammate instead of just a tool that's out there to use.
It's never just the tech, right? It's the people, the process, and the technology coming together when it's successful. It's good to be here in the HR Executive Studio with the Work Defined podcast crew and my own personal favorite crew, of course, the Sapient Insights Group. I'm Cliff Stevenson, Director of Research here at Sapient Insights Group, and I'm joined by
Teri Zipper. I'm the CEO and Managing Partner at Sapient.
And I'm Susan Richards. I'm the founder and one of the owners at Sapient Insights Group.
And this is really, to use a football analogy, because we did go to the Monday Night Football game, this is a bit of our Super Bowl, right, for Sapient Insights Group. This is what we've been preparing for the entire year. We run, and I feel like I'm going to have to brag a little bit, but that is what we're here for. We run the largest and longest, and I don't mean just in how long it takes. I mean, it's been going for 28 years.
Running 28 years.
Yeah, long before any of us were born, this has been going on. If you're watching the video, you'll see us in the pink.
We are all about pink.
Exactly. We love it. And so this year is the biggest one we've ever had. It's already the largest survey in terms of spread. We had over 10,000 individual participants take it. That's of the clean data, right? We had so many people take it.
Right. And over 4,500 different individual companies.
For a wait, I thought I heard Stacy say on stage, get the 350-page report, that like to add 100 pages to the report.
How did we end up with 100 extra pages in that report?
As the person typing in it. Yeah, well, one of the reasons it is longer than ever is because we're going more in depth than we ever have before. We're talking about not just are you using AI, but what are you using it for, or what's holding you back, and where are you using it? Is it embedded systems? Are you just using your own free ChatGPT on your phone? And spoiler alert, yes, people are.
Yeah, and I heard that we had added some categories this year. Let's hearing more about contingent workforce.
Yeah, we in fact are looking at contingent workforce management systems, because one thing you might notice if you've been keeping up with any of our other podcasts, our regular podcasts, HR We Have a Problem, hosted by Teri and whichever guest you have on, luminaries from the industry, and Spilling the Tea on HR Tech. There's been a lot of mergers and acquisition this year, especially when it relates to frontline workers, right? So of course AI is in the conversation, but really the frontline workers and how that's been going. And so anything that relates to that, and of course, contingent workforce management has to be a part of that too. So does skills and all of that. So we have a lot of detail on that. We are looking at also user experience and vendor satisfaction for those tools we just talked about, your ChatGPT, Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot, all of those. So it's really blurring the lines. It's something, Susan, you and I talked about a lot, is what even defines HR tech anymore? When you look around the floor, and I guess I'll turn this over to whoever wants to say it's first. Is there, you notice any changes to this event this year in terms of who's here or size of booths or absences? Anything that surprised you, Susan?
I usually see a lot of learning platforms here, and they're absent this year. So I don't know what that's about, but I usually see, Docebo and Scoops and others here, and they're just not here this year. We spent a good amount of time in the Cornerstone booth yesterday and heard about all the new wonderful things that are happening there, but haven't seen some of the other players that we normally see in the space.
Yeah, Degreed is also missing.
Right.
But which is odd, because we're going to be talking a little more about our voice of the customer research, so we reference in just a bit. But when we saw where spending was going, we know spending isn't as big. Let's just say in the most positive way. It's not as powerful as it has been in previous years.
Yeah, spending continues to inch down.
It continues to inch down. But where spending is happening is in learning. Right. We do see, at least in the enterprise space.
Right. So we would have expected to see those platforms here this week.
Yeah. It is.
Wonder where they're going.
Yeah. Yeah. If any of you are listening and you have some insight to that, we'd love to hear.
We'd love to hear about it.
We're all in the information gathering business, right? Anything else that you've seen or some conversations you've had while you've been here that have been enlightening or that maybe reinforce some of our own data?
Yeah. So a lot of the up and comers you've seen the ones that have been around for a while have the traditional booths. The up and comers have like really expanded this year. Like their booths have gotten bigger and bigger. They're doing a lot more at the event and just trying to bring people in. And, and they showed up really well in the survey this year. So there's a lot of new kids on the block.
Yeah, Rippling was one of those new kids on the block that we were watching 3 or 4 years ago. I remember they were in Stacy's emerging tech ones to watch, and all of a sudden they've just exploded onto the scene, and not just this small business, but in mid-market and maybe even seeing them in enterprise.
Yeah, I think Hi Bob's another one where I don't even think they were here 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Like they've only been at the show for the last couple of years.
Going with them like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I was like, who are these folks? And just hearing their vision and where they were trying to go, they were another one that we're like, oh, we need to watch them.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned Hi Bob and Rippling specifically, because both of them made some waves. Or, I think maybe we could even say that, part of the fundamental appeal is with Rippling having HR and IT in one space. And then with Hi Bob acquiring Mosaic and having finance as part of that conversation, it kind of goes back to this thematic thing that we were talking about. That's, where is HR tech? And if we're really trying to do this, if we're really elevating ourselves to the point of strategy for the business, and, that has some repercussions negatively too.
Yeah.
Part of it is that, we're going to need to do true workforce planning, and that involves financial planning, and that involves all the technical aspects as well.
I think it does bring us back around to that idea of workforce tech. It's not just about HR.
Right.
The IT component of this, the finance component, HR, IT, finance, operations. I mean, these need to be more integrated and just working better together.
Yeah.
Yeah. The days of us working in silos by function, I think, are quickly moving to the background, and we're going to see, or we have to see, more cross-functional team efforts going forward, because all of the things that we typically have seen in HR technology are now impacting and contributions to the business outcomes for not just HR, but operations, sales, marketing, IT, finance, and the rest of the C-suite.
This, I know this is your area of expertise, right? We're really talking about is change management, right? There's that term.
That HR and change management and change leadership. Yeah. When we're talking with our colleagues about AI and how prevalent it is and how much the organization is leaning into AI, conversation very quickly shifts to, okay, we've got the tech. Now, how do we get people to adopt it? And the conversation quickly shifts to one of change management and getting ourselves and our colleagues over the fear and into that space of being excited about AI and learning to use AI as a tool. And even in some of the conversations this week, considering AI a teammate instead of just a tool that's out there to use.
Yeah. And just like a teammate, that also requires sort of thoughtful, almost like a friendly, but also compliant approach. I know I'm really stretching the analogy here, but, there's a lot of this. If we're going to be using these tools, they still HR needs to have a hand in how they're used and have some guidelines and some ethics. We were just talking about people using it for, writing job descriptions or for writing performance reviews. And you're like, wait, you just violated HIPAA.
Well, thinking about that compliance topic, I heard our vendors talking about compliance this week more than I have heard them talk about compliance in probably the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think it has something to do with this introduction of AI into the workspace. And no longer can we rely on the humans to make sure things are compliant, but now we have to make sure that our work tech is compliant as well.
Yeah, and we're even seeing new vendors come up in that space that do that kind of work. Lanai comes to mind, FairNow as well, that are kind of keeping an eye on that and working in that in-between space. It's interesting to see, IBM is here, Atlassian's here, and shows up in our research.
Yeah.
and maybe not the first thing that would come to mind, but then you start to realize there's a lot of need for all of these things and to tie it all together. I mean, Anaplan is one we've long known about. They're coming from the financial planning, but what is that? When we really start bringing everything together, isn't that part of workforce planning? So,
it is part of workforce management.
It is. Yeah. And if anything's going to break those barriers down faster, it's going to be the AI, platform coming into this. I mean, I could foresee, us not talking in maybe 5 years, maybe a little longer, but I mean, some of these things happen fast, but I could see us not talking about HR tech specifically, right?
Absolutely.
When an employee has a journey in an organization, it's not just about all the things they do in HR, right? And as you think about, integrating AI into the business and how that's truly going to create value in the business, it's going to be across everything that employee does and touches throughout their life cycle and their day-to-day apps, their things they do from a financial perspective, the things they need to do for their own career perspective. I could foresee this being a lot more integrated.
So it becomes work tech instead of HR.
Absolutely. We already see some of these during some of our conversations with some of the vendors that are here, talking about we're going to be able to pull both and push data into like Salesforce, for instance. That's where people are spending their time. So I need to be able to pull information on who I might want to hire and the sort of skills that I need directly from Salesforce and work back and forth. And like, okay, here's the data that we have and here's what we're looking for because these are the kind of people that we're selling to or whatever the case may be. And Salesforce, another one that's here.
Well, a lot of times at the end of the day, the employee doesn't care what you're using. They may not even know. I mean,
they just want it to work.
There definitely are organizations where they try to make a big splash and the employee can tell you, hey, we use Workday. We use iSolved, we use whatever, but do they need to know? Is that important for them to know? I think what's important for them to be able to do is to do their job.
That's so interesting, Teri. So many of the big transformations that we've worked on in the past branded themselves as Project Phoenix or Project Pro, or they didn't even use the name of the technology. They didn't talk about, oh, we're implementing UKG or, oh, we're implementing Davecourse. It's, hey, we're implementing a new platform to make your job easier. So I could see that becoming even more prevalent in the future.
Absolutely. There's that blending between anyone that's been in the business knows that it's never just the tech, right? It's the people, the process, and the technology coming together when it's successful, I should say.
Well, sometimes when it's not successful.
Well, you mentioned the transformation efforts, and we do a lot of work in that space and advisory, but we also do a lot in leadership. And in fact, your closing keynote session in the Women in Leadership for HR Tech was that just Monday? It feels like a week ago. This is a very long conference.
It's Tuesday.
It was Women Leading Through AI. I probably have the title a little bit wrong, but that was fascinating. It was a packed house. People loved to hear it. Really diverse group of people in different levels of leadership. And what was really cool is it felt informal, but obviously there was some scripting too, but it was pretty interesting. Did anything from that surprise you, or did you hear anything where like, wow, I know you're sort of moderating the panel, but you probably also like, I need to write that down.
I wish I had a pen. There were a lot of interesting things. I mean, I think we had, we talked about getting AI deployed within the organization and how we're thinking about it from an HR perspective and who's leading it, what are the skills we need and things like that. And so we had somebody representing kind of the board level, like what are the boards doing and what are they thinking about? So it was really interesting. We heard in the survey that the boards at the board level, they believe that as organizations, they didn't have the skill sets to deploy AI in a meaningful way. I think we heard from Jenny that's probably
that was reinforced.
That was totally reinforced. We heard from ACTA around, at the CHRO level, leading that piece of the business within the organization and in healthcare, no less, what they're really seeing on the ground. Right. And then Julie from UKG talked a lot about what she's seeing and hearing every day. She's traveling around the country, meeting with, just everyday people, that are trying to learn and get involved in some way. So it was really interesting. Some of the things she learned and heard were from people that were, they believe this generation of older people aren't willing to adapt to AI. And
she had some information, didn't she?
It was awesome. So Yeah, I mean, there's some very different conflicting things as you move through the organization. That was the whole point of what I wanted to talk about and get out for people, because everybody's struggling. Everybody's trying to sort of figure out not just where to start, but when to start, because it's not like their day jobs went away. And again, the executive level saying, hi. I'm like, well,
What the heck does that mean?
And what we saw in Stacy's presentation this morning was, all of us are using AI. At the consumer level, we are doing AI. But when you start talking about at the business level, that was a very interesting conversation.
Well, and I'm interested in this dichotomy of recruiting using AI to recruit employees or to bring people through the door, get them into the process, and a bit of pushback from the HR leaders and hiring managers about employees using AI to write their resumes.
As I'll say, not
a real life example of I know this organization uses AI to write their job descriptions. They use AI in their recruiting process and throughout the onboarding process, and they forbid employees or potential employees from using AI to write their resume. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, how different is that from having a resume writer write your resume for you?
Optimize your business with a Workforce AI Edge powered by Vizier. Make smarter decisions and achieve better outcomes with real-time AI insights delivered to every people leader. Explore more at visier.com.
Or Grammarly or Microsoft giving you a template for your resume.
Hot tip, just tweak a few words and they won't be able to tell it was.
Remove the M dash. Right. Well, it's interesting, just as a little sort of inside baseball, or however you want to think of it. But when people write into our survey, right, and we're going through all of those responses, and we do ask them also for qualitative data, give us some comments, tell us what you think. And you'll see, okay, they gave them a 5-star rating. Let me see what they wrote about it. If I see a misspelled word, I'm like, good, we're good to go. But when it's perfectly written, I'm like, this is suspicious. It's a little too flowery. I'm starting to wonder if it's AI.
Fat fingers.
Yeah.
Like,
so, make sure there's some misspellings in there. And people are like, okay, it's good to go.
Unless you're
Welcome to the How to Cheat at Getting a Job podcast. This is devolved into. That would actually do pretty well. Write in if you want to hear that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting. And you're right. There's a lot of use of AI. In fact, we saw the number one use is writing job descriptions, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to write job descriptions. Still the number one use case for it. It's a fairly low risk use, right? People are a little concerned about using AI to make decisions. Where it's successful, it's in these sort of things. But if, you're going to write job descriptions in AI, then why not?
Then why not leverage it all the way through the process?
Right. Especially if that's the skill you're looking for, right?
But, and, in most job descriptions now, there is a requirement or at least a preference for capabilities around AI.
Yeah. There's been some pretty interesting ones I saw. Speaking of skills, as jumping off point, there are a lot of companies here in that skills game. Your Eightfold and Skillsoft, and among others, Cornerstone. All the well-knowns that are really trying to use AI on that side of collecting information, of consolidating taxonomies and ontologies, and it's another one where people are saying, okay, I want it to be a fairly low risk proposition when using it, but I would argue that there's actually some risk there when you're creating skill sets based on AI, and because it's a very hard one to check.
Right. Yeah. That's where I would recommend definitely having a human in the loop and having it at several places in the loop.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the watchword. We were talking about, what do you need to do AI, right? And I'd say maybe last year at HR Tech, you saw a lot of, now with AI, stickers plastered on everything. And now it's a little more like, okay, AI is used, but we're specifically looking at use cases. What is the actual, right. What are we actually doing with AI? It's not just we have it, right?
I see him being more of an enabler than anything else. And, I love the idea of looking at a business process and identifying where there's a bottleneck or where are there obstacles. Where does it take too long to do things? Where are there errors that occur? Identify in the process where we can insert AI as a tool rather than trying to do wholesale, but using it as something to help us do our work better, faster, more efficiently, and more effectively.
Yeah. And during Stacey's keynote, I noticed there was a lot of cameras. We're mentioning Stacey Harris, by the way, maybe joining us, Chief Research Officer here, has one of the most popular keynotes, regardless of when they put her on the actual schedule. We'll talk about that later, at HR Tech, kind of bringing all this data up. And I noticed a lot of people are very interested in a process workflow she's created that's in our paper, available for purchase on our website, that you can go to, and it's showing where people are putting AI agents in to the process. Where is the most popular, where they're finding the most use for it. And a lot of it is in that anomaly detection stage, finding those parts of how it can help the workflow, moving things along rather than being a decision-making model, which is when you get into both regulatory trouble, and it isn't really a great practice overall, just in terms of success.
Yeah, there's a lot going on out there. There were a lot of people talking about a lot of different things. Some interesting stuff, I think, came out of the AI conversation, just from the perspective of what the customer said they were doing and using. Like that was really a surprise when we saw those numbers about who actually said they were using AI and what tools they were using it, right? Even though the numbers were they were higher than last year, but still lower than you might expect from.
Yeah, 90% of people aren't using it yet.
Yeah.
Right.
What are you using in terms of embedded AI? I loved the word cloud that we did during my session on Tuesday, because the biggest word, there was almost a tie, but the biggest word was excited. The second biggest word, which was very, very close, was overwhelmed, I think. Right. So there's still kind of half and half out there of people that are excited, ready to go, let's do this. And another group who are, I just don't know what the next step is, or I don't know how to get involved in a way that's going to help me bring this into the organization and drive whatever vision the organization has for it. That was the other big thing that I wanted to bring out in the conversation that we were talking about, was what are the goals? Because again, just telling us to do AI, like what does that even mean? And as we heard from Ekta and actually Christina during Stacey's session, was there's a whole lot more opportunity in the business of how we deliver to customers using AI than there is just figuring out how we do things faster in HR, right?
Yeah.
So don't get too hung up on, trying to figure out how we automate this one process in HR. That's going to save some time, but it's not anything compared to what it could bring when you impact the customer and when you impact the front line.
And oh my goodness, how do you figure that out? You go talk to them.
Yeah. Talk to people.
HR, let's get out of our box and go talk to our clients, the people in the business. Find out what is painful for them. Find out what's not working for them. What would they like to see? And then apply the tools and the technology that we have to make their lives better.
Yeah. When was the last time you asked? Because I can tell you, I've worked with some customers that thought everything was great. Our payroll system's great. Everybody loves it. That was from the payroll leader. And then I went and talked to their employees. Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, we sometimes get caught up in that loop of we design the systems for HR and payroll and talent and the people who are using it every day, rather than thinking about who our end users are, who are our end clients.
And they're great.
Yeah.
The halo effect.
Yeah. We definitely, going through those thousands comments, and, people will write in there, again, not just a positive, what their criticisms are too. And when you start to see things like, it makes me reset my password every 2 weeks, so I've just stopped using it. It's those little things, but they seem little, right? But you're like, oh, I invested all this. But, if you're not talking to people, that's not going to surface. You'll just be like, because you won't know why these people aren't using it. They'll just be like, well, that's not useful to me. And
your security leader is really happy about it though, right? Because we've got good password security.
Right. So again, it's, talk to your people, and, as we kind of said earlier, talk to IT and talk to finance and talk to your fellow leaders there as well, because their priorities, ideally everyone's aligned with the business, right? But their specific priorities may be different from yours, but you can usually find a space in there, right? It's kind of like, in
looking for common ground. Right?
Exactly it, and a lot of our work has been shifted in HR sometimes to this more data-driven process, but part of that is data governance, right? And a lot of part of data governance is common definitions. And I think you can express that feeling and that sentiment across what we do. Engagement can mean different things to different people, and what they find valuable in a tool could be different.
Very much so.
So, Cliff, not to put you on the spot,
Please.
but can you think of any, like, what were some of the, because we had a lot of write-ins and a lot of great ones. A lot of people tell us what they really love, and they get into some detail into what they love and what they hate, obviously, or what they don't like. Can you think of any interesting one? The one you just mentioned was interesting, but that's always fun to read the comment sections, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But
So this is exclusive, just between us.
say who they're about.
Oh, no. I was going to say, it's just between us. I do a little Control F search and type in curse words, because I'm like, let me see because when people write in some curse words, it's usually on the negative side. They're usually not saying this is effing great.
Yeah.
Because that will allow me to see, again, it's kind of like the misspelling things. I was like, they're being real if they're doing this.
Yeah.
And then I read those. And those are usually pretty funny. And a lot of times there are things in there that are, so they're venting about something that actually doesn't have to do with this system. It's like my manager makes me log on, Sundays. And it's like, okay, well, it's not really Workday software or whatever. There are some.
It's like a practice rather than a software configuration issue.
Yeah, but, the things that are fascinating to me, and we'll work with clients, parsing all of those comments and pulling out themes and working with them to kind of gather that qualitative data and help them develop their products. And some of them are really fascinating. I was just talking to iSolved about this. They have the highest instance of people using names. So when they're talking about their customer service, they won't say iSolved's customer service is great. They'll say, James has been wonderful. He's worked with us for 4 years, making sure the system works well. That shows a sense of community. And this is by design. They make sure that you always have the same customer service agent, and they're not constantly firing the other,
That's
so that
awesome.
and you see that, I was like, that speaks to what you're doing in a way that's hard to quantify, but is there when I keep seeing random names pop up.
Wait, that just gave me goosebumps.
I don't know. That's awesome.
I mean, how often do you actually know the name of your customer service rep and get the same person over and over again?
Yeah. And they've even made it so that if you move to like a different tier, if your company grows, you shift, you still stick with that person to keep that going rather than saying, no, you only work for this type of client or this type. So that's really interesting to see. You'll see a lot in some of the up and coming ones, your Ripplings and Hi Bobs. They do a good job of creating communities, and you'll see that reflected. You'll see a lot of kind of more emotive terms, the side of things you'd morally associate if you're writing about your friends or your family. Like it's not, instead of just saying it's an efficient system, be like, oh, it's so friendly to use and things like that. I'm like, that's
a connection.
Yeah. And so that's really important. And it is kind of nice because, we're in the data world, just same as everyone, and you can get lost in the numbers and you're really trying to figure out what's really driving these behaviors. So it all kind of comes together. But yeah, I really do like reading through the comments. I mean, the survey is large in terms of the amount of data, but I do think it's well worth time going in. It's almost a corollary to what you were both just saying, right? You can't just look at the numbers and what coming in a 4.2 versus a 4.15. You really have to sit there and more or less talk to the people.
You got to look at the qualitative data in addition to the quantitative.
Yeah. I
good.
think my favorite one, and this was related to why did you take the survey, was because my boss told me to. That was awesome. I mean, usually it's like, because I get the report for free.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
I really want the data. Yeah. But the one that was like, yeah, my boss made me was awesome because.
Well, then there was somebody who wrote in and said, I need the recertification credit.
Yes.
That's a
good reason.
Yeah, it's good.
It takes some effort. And if you're trying to work on your HR system strategy, filling out the survey is probably a good place to start because it'll force you to go around and get answers to the questions about all the technology that you have and from an HR perspective.
It's a great place to start. And so many organizations hire outside consultants to tell them what their current state is. And when you take the survey, you know what your current state is. And that gives you a great foundation for figuring out your roadmap of where you want to go. I mean, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
I knew you just wanted to put in Bon Jovi lyrics.
Lead me to my music.
Yeah, that we're going. But yeah, I think we're more than halfway there. I think we're probably wrapping up here, but you can reach out to us. You can, if you find us, come talk to us in person. We're in pink.
Always.
But you can find us at sapientinsights.com. You can write to any of us at that website, any of our first names, if you're trying to email us, LinkedIn, however you want to do it. And I'll say on a personal level, because this is really a conference about HR. I mean, it's about tech, but really it's about what we're doing and trying to think about that practical advice. It has been really wonderful in that sense of community and family to get to see both of you. We all work remotely, and to see everyone from the team in person and to get a chance to bond. If you can create a company that has such a feeling of warmth and friendliness like you guys have, then you're succeeding.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cliff. This is my favorite time of year. I mean, honestly, this is better than Christmas as far as I'm concerned. So I get to see all of my friends, all my family, all my colleagues, work colleagues, and friends that I've known for 20, 30 years. And we sat last night with a group during a happy hour, and it was just so warm and lovely to see people in real life and trade stories and laugh and just be here with people that we love.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It is our Super Bowl, and you know, it's extremely challenging and stressful running up to this show. Like, we are just running 100 miles an hour. There's some
all for you,
tempos,
all for you, our clients.
Some crazy stuff that happens as we're trying to get ready. But I tell you, once we get here, all the pressure is off, because now we're just here. We just gotta deliver. And like Susan said, it's just so much fun to be here and to be talking about these things and to be helping others think through these challenges, because we all want to create that best future of work.
Yeah, well said. Well, thank you all.
All right, Cliff. Thanks for
that a wrap?
I think that's a wrap. Our sound guy's left, so we'll just mutter unintelligibly into the microphone for our live studio audience. So thank you all for being here. Deanna keeps hiding from my point of view. I don't know if she's trying to not be caught. Deanna Forson, everybody. Number one, recognize the absolute best.
Yeah.
You
should put her.
If you need a CHRO, there's one right there. Yeah.
Or at least a leader of HRIT. I think she would be great.
You know what? CEO.
CEO. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Skip
There's
it.
a promotion for you.
All right.
Shout out to everybody.
Yeah,
Shout out to
me. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Summer and Allison and the gang back at the ranch.
Yeah. Shout out to their new bundles of joy at Summers, who's already come in. Allison, who will be soon.